Welcome back to another podcast. I've got Kerry Clark here with me.
Hello, everybody.
We are so glad to have you join us. Today's podcast, we're going to talk about education.
Education.
Within or
without.
So y'all can only imagine what this podcast is going to detail. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes,
I have no clue.
Yeah, this topic is interesting because it talks about two forms or two types of being educated. Most people, which is average, normal, 51% or better out of every person you know does what's called an education that projects outward, meaning we'll get a degree so that we can impress someone that's exterior to who we are and the purpose upon which we get the degree in the first place. You like that, don't you?
Well, I mean, that was pretty good. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So join us as we dive into this subject that Kerry's sharing with us a little bit more, and we will see you at the end.
All right, let's get started. Continuing with life growth area number 1, our life. Our life is made up of our home for these purposes, our education, and our personal life. And I have those 3 categories because our home is based on who we live with and others we do the majority of our life with. Our education is our pursuits to be something more than what we are today. And then our personal life is what happens to us inside of us as an individual, or what we do when we're alone, or what makes us significant to ourselves. And it's that attribute that stands alone. And today I want to discuss the topic of education. I like to look at education in 2 different ways: education within and education without. The education that projects and the education that makes us better inside, gives us more wits, more wisdom, more intelligence that we use for ourselves. Education without and education within. The motivation for education has been to obtain a benefit of prestige, advancement, and employment. That long statement is just simply to say we use education to get something that's external, whether it's prestige or notoriety. Maybe it's to have someone to respect us, or maybe to project leadership. It's also we get educated so that we can get advancement. We want to be promoted. We want to go to the next level. And then, of course, education is highly employment driven, meaning you need an education to get a job. College education is like the default for getting a significant job, at least in the United States. Without a college degree, some jobs will close the door on you. And so there's this outward projection of education that has become very important. What if education was based upon self-worth and self-approval? What if you took the outside motivations for education and you brought them inside? What if you educated yourself not to get prestige, advancement, or employment, but what if you did it to improve your self-worth and your self-approval? Jim Rohn says it this way: even when you take a job, the number one thing you should be working on is yourself. I love the way he says it. If you ever hear him speak, which you have to do it in recordings, if you ever hear his messages that are recorded, oh, he has such an interesting voice. I love the voice and how he emphasizes words. But he says the number one person you should be working on, not your job. You shouldn't be going to work on work. You're going to work on yourself. And so what would you get out of it? If you change from getting an education without and you brought your education to within, what would you get out of it? What would that make happen for you? Let me say it this way. Normal, average, common, natural, the things that we see most often than not, is the education that happens without. It's the education that produces prestige, advancement, and employment. Those things happen normally, and we see those results every single day. Yet, they are not enough, and they are not producing the thing that we really desire. They're not really giving you the prestige anymore. They're not giving you the advancement, and frankly, employment is not giving you that either. There are many people who have degrees today who do not have jobs, and there are even more who have degrees in majors that they do not work in their very own fields. I know people who have settled for jobs that have very little, if anything, to do with what they learned at some institution of higher education or higher learning. So what if we changed the dynamics on how to be educated and we moved it from trying to have outward results, but we brought them inward to change ourselves? How much more would you gain from it, and what then would be your motives? What would you do with it? You see, if you focus on being educated without to get those external results that we mentioned earlier, you're going to just be normal average. But let's reverse it. Let's change it and bring education to the inward. Let's work on ourselves and see how much of a difference it makes in our lives. Let's see what we become. Let's see what it would make of us. Let's see how different our lives would be. I guarantee if you work on making yourself better, educating yourself, you will step out of average, you'll step out of ordinary, you'll step out of common, and you'll step over into a realm that I call the uncommon, the no longer common, the exceptional, the extraordinary. In fact, you'll be first in your class, first in life. You'll be a leader, not a follower. You will rise above the rest. You see, this concept of being educated within, that's not normal. No one talks about working on themselves. They talk about getting educated so that they can get something, not become someone. You see, this is what this lesson is about. How to change your mindset from thinking like everyone else and trying to use education in an outward direction, as instead, we're going to reverse that cycle, change from being like everyone else so that we can be like very few others, be extraordinary, and educate ourselves within, thusly changing not what we are, but who we are and what we have become.
All right. Thanks for joining us, y'all, and hanging in there with us as you watched our podcast talking about education within or without. So, Kerry, you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, just a brief summary of what we intended to do with this, and hopefully you gained some great insight about the difference between being educated or projecting your education without versus the internal part of it, educating yourself within, meaning you get your education so that it can enhance your gift, so that your gift is the thing that you're going to project, not the education. You use your education to enhance the tools that you've been given, that God has gifted you with. That's your skill, your talent, the things that you have to work with, so that the education enhances that gift that's on the inside of you.
That was good. That was good. So we hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and certainly you can always reach out to us using our different mediums across social media, or even visit our website at Kerry'A.com. So until next time, y'all, thanks for what you're doing. We appreciate you sharing with all those you come into contact with so that they too can enjoy a life of being unlike anyone else. Thanks.
Please subscribe, because that's helpful for you to get the notifications when we release our newest episodes. And please go back and look at the ones you haven't seen, because they've actually been very good. Got some good feedback on them just for you, to help you get beyond being an average, ordinary, common individual.
All right. Until next time, y'all. Bye.
Bye.